Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm going to continue my Clifford D. Simak series finally, following up The Voice in the Void with the Hellhounds of the Cosmos. Sorry, it's just Hellhounds of the Cosmos. This is a story that was published in June of 1932 in Astounding Stories. And it is novelette length, so it's a little longer than just a short story. And this story, it starts out with the Earth being attacked all over the Earth by these black amorphous kind of shapes that are just floating through, but they're actually attacking people. They are driven by thought and they are attacking people and eating people. There is, of course, a scientist who figures out what's going on right away. And what he says is that these creatures are from the fourth dimension. And they look so odd to us, and they are impossible for us to kill because they are fourth dimensional beings come over into a three-dimensional world. And the only way to stop them is to go into their dimension, to send men that are stepped up to the fourth dimension, into this fourth dimensional world, and battle. And of course, he had already invented a machine that can access this fourth dimensional world. So he sends 90 some people over to do battle with whatever intelligences are over there. And that's where I'll stop the synopsis. It's a very, very cool story. It's typical 1930s, but it's the very best of what they were doing in 1932. You know, it is kind of campy. The characters are not really great, but they're not as bad as a lot of other stories that I'm reading from that time period. They're okay. They're just not what we would expect from writers today. But this is Simak's fourth story. It's 1932. It's pulp magazines. This was okay for pulp magazines, and it's really one of the best examples of what those magazines put out. It's kind of remarkable for what those magazines normally were publishing. This is an excellent story. It's a remarkable story. You got this cool science fictional idea of the fourth dimensions, and the idea goes further. What Simak is saying is that there are beings of higher dimensions, and that evolution actually is working different from what we thought. Evolution is not happening within the third dimension. What's happening is that beings of higher dimensions are evolving downward towards us, and eventually second dimension and first dimension as evolution progresses. So it's more like devolution, which is a term that wasn't coined yet in 1932. We'll get to who did that not too long from now, but for right now, devolution was not a word. Otherwise, you have this cosmic science fictional idea. You have kind of a typical 1930s story with a villain to fight and heroes to fight it, a genius scientist to provide the technology to do so. This really is one of the best examples of science fiction before the golden age. I found it to be amazingly entertaining, a lot of fun. really cool ideas, really different. I'd never read, I mean, I've read other Clifford Simak, mostly stuff from the Golden Age years, 1940s, like the city stories. Um, Never read this one before, and it was cool. Now, like as I said, this was published in the June 1932 Astounding Stories, so you can find it there if you can get a hold of that. I have seen PDF online of that issue. I personally read it in this book, Earth for Inspiration and Other Stories. It's part of the complete short fiction of Clifford D. Simak. This is volume 9. I think there's 14 or 15 volumes altogether. I bought them all. They're currently available off Amazon, published by Open Road Publishing, Open Road Integrated Media. So these are print on demand. And they're excellent books. They're, pretty nicely produced, and they have decent covers. I like the cover of this. It's not my favorite, but it's not bad at all. So that's a good book to get if you want to read Hellhounds of the Cosmos or other stories, short stories by Clifford D. Simak. And the way they did these, they didn't do them in chronological order. So, like in this particular volume, you have two of the stories from 1932. The next story I'm going to do for Simak, Asteroid of Gold, is also in this volume. But otherwise, he jumps around. There's stories from 1954, 1941, 1956, 1957. 1944, 1960, 1955. So it's jumping all around in his career. I wouldn't have done it that way, but they decided to do it that way, and so for my purposes, I had to have every volume. um, but that's okay because I'm really I love Clifford Simak's work. I'm really loving everything I've read so far. And by the way, I'm giving Hellhounds of the Cosmos a top tail status. Yes, it's way simpler than what authors today would write. But when you look at when it was written, what was written, I mean, there's a lot of the negative things about other stories that were published at this time that you're not going to find in Hellhounds of the Cosmos. It it's well plotted. It's a really cool idea. The characters aren't horrible. They're better than average for 1932. Overall, this is better than the vast majority of what was published at this time. And I did enjoy it. I gotta say, I flat out enjoyed reading this story. And I'm looking forward to more Clifford Simak. So my next one, as I said, is going to be Asteroid of Gold. If you've read Hellhounds of the Cosmos, please leave your comments in the comments section of the video. I want to hear what you think too. Otherwise, come on back for Asteroids of Gold and all the other Clifford Simak and other stories that I'm going to be covering on Telltale Books.